Good evening and welcome to Step Up Network's Leadership Diversity Webinar and Panel. Louise, who's on the screen as well, will be hosting the panel. So my name's Elaine Hayes. I am one of the original founding members of Step Up, and I'm currently the media director, and I work with all of the team getting these webinars produced. Thank you to Adam, who is in the background doing all of the technical work, dragging us in the studio and the controller of our PowerPoint this evening. If you'd like to go next slide, please, Adam. So we would really love to hear your stories. Connect with us on social media, on Twitter and X. I refuse to call it Twitter. I keep calling it Twitter. And also we have a Blue Sky account, so the user accounts are there. Hashtag leadership diversity and hashtag step up shares, so that we can find your comments really easy if you don't tag us into your views tonight. So who are we? We are a grassroots organization, turned a community interest company, a social enterprise. We work with new and aspiring leaders right from ECT up onto middle leaders and senior leaders who want to step up into those positions and be able to thrive, not just survive. Our mission and values: we want to empower a diverse community with empathy, passion, and integrity to make the step up that they wish to make, wherever that may be in their career or whatever time frame they are in their career. We want to be able to support you in your next steps and your journey through education. Our vision and priorities: we want to see education leadership that's diverse, inclusive, and flexible, which is really, really important to keep the best talent within the education system. There's been a massive draw of talent out where it's very not flexible. We want to try and have those elements in. It responds positively to the needs of our sector. We want to disrupt leadership, especially recruitment. We want to ensure that everybody has that opportunity to apply for that dream job, have the tools, knowledge, know-how to be able to put their best selves forward, making sure that we've got a really strong talent pipeline coming through right from the very, very start in ITT all the way through to headship and beyond. Addressing the gaps in knowledge that we have as well. So it's making sure that, leadership can be a very, very lonely place. Where do you go if you have a question that you can't ask somebody that's in your building? Where can you turn to? And we do have elements like coaching and our blogs and all of these webinars that people can refer back to, and a lot of times get answers. It's about connecting people. So our why, it is about that connection. People may not step up even though actually they have the ability to. It's having someone believe in you. It might be that there's a lack of opportunity, or sometimes people don't see the opportunities to be able to step up. And we want to make sure that people have that support in stepping up. It doesn't have to be a lonely experience. It doesn't have to be this element of you being on your own. We need to support each other, and that collaboration is one of our missions as well. So our goal and circle of how, I've already mentioned collaboration, networking, connecting, supporting, collaborating, sharing. These are our 5 ways of working, which are really, really important to our organization. We want to create those networks so that people can reach out. People can pick up the phone, can message, can WhatsApp, can text, by connecting people, making sure that we're able to give that support so that no matter who you are, no matter what step you're making, you have that support. Our goal and circle, the last element of that is our what. We are a leadership network. It's for new and aspiring leaders. We want to share content and storytelling. We want to make sure that we are helping to get rid of barriers. We are creating tables for people to bring seats to. We're inviting people to bring those seats. We're helping tear down those walls. And if we can't tear down the walls, we're going to find the ladder and get over the wall. Or we'll find a door and get through the wall. We want to be able to focus on leadership development through our coaching. Ultimately, leadership is most powerful when it is diverse. It has a range of ideas and a range of people involved, people who look like you, who, it's very, very important for that visual imagery, especially to the young people that we serve. being able to have a diverse leadership within there. We talk about leadership journeys. Storytelling is such a powerful tool where people can hear other stories, their successes, their failures, what they've learned from them, how they've overcome barriers, because barriers exist for everybody. The barriers that exist for I and Louise exist for other people as well. And, it's about sharing those stories and making sure that then it doesn't have to be where you've got to do the same journey completely alone, take the learnings from others. And ultimately, we have to look at well-being. For middle and senior leaders, middle leaders being the cog, being the engine room of schools, and obviously the pressures that senior leaders are under, we want to make sure that well-being is a core content. Shout out to Patrick Otley O'Connor. I always use his reference about, the oxygen mask, where you need to put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. If you're not filling your circle or filling your bucket, how can you expect to fill the bucket of others? So we've worked with a huge number of different collaborators from Teach First. We've got Women Ed, Staffordshire Research School, the We Lead Well podcast, Black Men Teach, all of these organisations that we have partnered with or we've worked directly with. It's really exciting to see how many different organisations. Big shout out to our male childcare and teaching jobs who've actually sponsored a number of events for us, and Claudio is always at our events, so I just want to give a shout out to him. He's been a massive supporter of us. So our impact so far, numbers, data people, this is your slide. It's been a massive impact. This came about as a conversation on WhatsApp about, a vision, what can we do to help. We've had over 20 of our community members gain promotion. We've had 7,000 views on the website, 10 events, including different socials, a 100% satisfaction rate for attendees. And we do want to hear your feedback at the end of this. And there'll be slides at the end. We've got over 10 plus volunteers, different areas. We have some in education, some outside of education. We've done 6 webinars and we've had over 300 people in person attend our events, which we're really, really proud of. In the 2 years that we've existed, we've had a big impact, and the plan is to keep growing that impact. So we've also had a number of awards, been shortlisted for a number of different awards, and we've also won a Global Recognition Award, which is the one in the bottom right-hand corner, in terms of the material that we're producing, the connections that we're able to forge, and our network as a whole. So tonight, as I said earlier, we've got our socials set up. So we've got Step Up Ed on X, Twitter, and we've got our Blue Sky. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your thoughts, your reflections, also your questions. So you can put them into the chat on here. We'll keep an eye on the Twitter and the Blue Sky as well. So if you want to get involved in the conversation, hashtag Step Up Shares. Now it is time. I'm actually really excited to listen to all of these panelists. So Louise has fabulously volunteered to host our panel this evening. Welcome,
Hello.
Louise.
Hiya. Listening with great interest there. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and I've attended one of your events and presented, and absolutely love Step Up Network. Fantastic.
It's lovely to hear feedback from people, and actually, who've been to events and then come to it. It's nice to see the same faces and new faces at events, but also see the same faces, because that means we've done something right.
It's a safe space. It really is. Really is.
So joining Louise tonight, we've got 3 panelists. We've got Aziza, Bennie, and Gary. And once Louise takes over, I'll get everybody to introduce themselves in a second. So really, really excited about looking at diversity within leadership, because I do think diverse ideas bring such strength to leadership teams, because if you don't have that, then you're down one path and there's multiple ways of doing things. So Louise, I'm going to hand it over to you. And what I'll do is, if everybody can do a quick intro, and then we can get into the questions. Really excited.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me to host this wonderful panel tonight. I'm incredibly excited to hear some of the answers to the questions we're going to discuss. And I hope other people will message in through all the different platforms with any questions for our panelists. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm hosting tonight. My name's Louise Jaunbocus-Cooper, and I'm currently a deputy head teacher. I've been a senior leader for many, many years in secondary, specialising in behaviour, and also co-founder of MixEd, a platform for people of dual mixed heritage in the education system, with my co-founder Marcus Shepherd. So if I just ask everybody to introduce themselves, so we'll start with Aziza, because I can see her that way.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's lovely to be here on a lovely evening in London. So yeah, I'm Aziza. I am officially actually named on Monday principal at the Grange Academy, which is a school in Bushey in Hertfordshire. So that's a really kind of exciting time for me as I step into the role of leading a school, which so far has been fun. It's probably one word I'd use to describe it. But I am also co-chair of 100 Black Head Teachers, which is a network that was started up and supported by Teach First and Mission 44, with the aim of trying to basically add 100 Black Head teachers to the system. We've been going for 2 years, and I've had kind of 3 people promoted into the role of headship in that period of time.
That's amazing.
I'm also a trustee of Mission 44. I have too much time on my hands.
I can't imagine you do. You just use it very well and very effectively. Bennie.
Hi, I'm Bennie. I am a former deputy head teacher in London, in Oxfordshire and in Derbyshire. And I left teaching 2 years ago because I've been doing a lot of work on diversity, particularly in the curriculum. So I've written a few books. In 2017, I co-founded Diverse Educators with Hannah Wilson. I've done quite a lot of work as the co-founder and as an associate for them. But my specialties are very much around middle leadership, stepping into senior leadership. And that's where I do my coaching. And that's how I spend my time these days: consultancy, training, writing books and coaching people. And I'm really excited to be here. Big fan of Step Up.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I'm a big fan of your book. The little green one, the little book of diversity, is absolutely brilliant. I've bought loads of copies for staff that I've worked with. It's absolutely fantastic. Gary, hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gary Pykitt. I'm Senior Lecturer and College Academic Lead for Teaching Excellence and the Student Experience. Massive title at Birmingham City University. I've worked there for 17 and a bit years now. Done various roles in that time. Currently working on my doctorate, looking at LGBTQIA+ inclusivity and representation in primary schools. From an autoethnographic perspective, it's a work in progress. So mine's all over the place at the moment with it, but it's really exciting. And really keen and passionate to make sure that LGBTQIA+ is represented in all ways in the school, so that, you know, children don't grow up as I did, where there's no visibility, making sure that that visibility is there. And I think keeping those conversations going. Delighted to be here. I've been to a few Step Up events. I have the pleasure of knowing Ben very well because he was one of my students a few years ago. And I have very fond memories during COVID times of doing a number of his research project supervisions on Teams. So yeah, it's lovely to see this really established and flourishing now. So yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you.
I think the Teams waiting room sound still triggers a lot of us from the COVID days where we were waiting for people to arrive. So yeah, that brings a flashback. Right. Oh, thank you for those wonderful introductions. Very much in esteemed company, and I can't wait to hear your perspective on some of the questions I've got tonight. So the first one, and it's a panel discussion, so let's just chip in. What does diversity in leadership mean to you? Who wants to go first?
I hate silences, so I will jump in to fill them. I mean, it can mean a lot of different things. And I think people make the mistake of thinking that diversity in leadership is just about race. And yes, that is a factor, but I often think about diversities when I'm talking about this work. So it's not really just about race, it's about sexuality, it's about gender, it's about neurodiversity, age, ability, really thinking broadly about the category, and certainly making sure that these things aren't put in place, that you don't hire people tokenistically to create your rainbow leadership teams. It's just being aware of who's at the table, and making sure that there's that due consideration around the different ways that people might think and the different experiences that they have coming to the discussion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I really like that idea of diversities, Bennie. I think that's a really, really nice way of thinking of it. And I think you're right. I think, my work as a school governor as well, looking at diversity on the board, it very often comes down to race, gender, age, and that's where it ends. And I think there's a legacy, from Section 28 and all of the stuff going on around trans at the moment, where some people have had to hide their identities and they've not felt safe or able to reveal those things about themselves. And there's an argument that people don't owe other people that information, but I think you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that all aspects of the protected characteristics are represented in the school. So we're going to be working with children, students, parents, colleagues who come from a range of backgrounds, who have got a range of protected characteristics, and we can't fully understand every individual person's experience, but it helps to give us that empathy, and I think it helps with that visibility piece as well. It's really important.
I think the thing that I would add, and I kind of agree with the points that have been made, is that we often don't talk about class, and that's because it doesn't kind of come up as a protected characteristic in the same way. But ultimately, this is about people having had different experiences and different perspectives, and trying to bring as much of that around a table in order to make decisions that are in the best interests of children and young people. And I think I really enjoy the book Rebel Ideas, because what he does in that book is talk about actual examples of where a lack of diversity of thought has resulted in really poor outcomes. And actually, I think that's what it's about. I think it's about having a range of people with different experiences and different perspectives in all manner of ways sat around the table to deal with some really complex problems that we experience in education. And I think that the solutions are very much found in those diverse perspectives.
Sorry, I just muted myself. My dog was barking. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And even myself, one of my protected characteristics has always been gender, has always been my race. But as I get to a certain age as well, age is a protected characteristic, and whether or not how I'm being viewed as well. So I'm sometimes you'll get leaders moving through a journey themselves, a personal journey, where they suddenly might have felt they fitted in as a young, dynamic leader. And then all of a sudden, you feel like, gosh, am I invisible now? What's happening? And again, I think the point you really touched on there, Gary, is one that I've been considering. It's providing that space, isn't it? That visual, but not all diversities are visible, and some people don't want to talk about them. So again, culturally, I've been thinking about the menopause, for example, but so we've got this, let's talk about it. Let's let everybody do it. But culturally, some people may want to keep that very private. And it's about creating that safe space, isn't it? But also making sure you don't feel obliged to share or feel you have to justify yourself in any way. But I think you're absolutely right. That diversity in leadership, that representation, Aziza, is crucial, isn't it? So how are you going to make informed decisions that benefit a wide range of young people when the people making the decisions are not a wide range of people? And I thought what was said before about creating tables to bring seats to was just a lovely way of putting that. Thank you for that. So in your journeys, in the settings that you've worked in, how have you ensured, because we've all got that sphere of influence, how have you ensured there's diversity in leadership when you can? And particularly Aziza, as you go into your headship journey, how are you going to assure that? So I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. If we start with Gary this time, or I'm putting him on the spot, or do you want to just all chip in?
No, get it out of the way. I think that's a really interesting. I think it's really being part of a group of people on that selection and bringing different perspectives and making sure that, you know, we're all clear about what we're there for, and to challenge people, to, you know, support and challenge each other as we have those conversations, because I think people can make assumptions about other people very easily, but it's always that thing of, but what about? And that challenge. I've recently, November time, I did the Royal College of Nursing's Cultural Ambassadors Programme, which looks at, it's largely designed around sort of fitness to practice things for nurses, and some of the discrimination that goes on there. But a lot of those principles I've been able to apply in recruitment as well, that, you know, we need to be challenging our own biases and recognizing our own biases. And that, you know, often people say, oh, I'm not biased in any way, but we've all got that unconscious bias, whether we like it or not. But it's being aware of that and having that conversation. And I think just having that constructive challenge and keeping those conversations going, recognizing that we're not all the experts as well. I think we need that bit of humility. So yeah, hopefully that makes some sort of sense and says what I've hopefully brought to the recruitment panels I've been on.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'll go. So I think for me, I really believe that diversity attracts diversity. And I think that you sort of start it, and then you get a bit of a snowball effect with other people sort of seeing or viewing a team in a school and thinking, oh, like there's people from different backgrounds here. This is, you know, possibly a place that I want to be. And so I don't even think this has been deliberate, but I sort of entered a senior team in September that was predominantly white male, and now my senior team has 4 black women on it, and a lot of changes happened in a really, really short space of time. And part of that has been largely kind of recruitment through networks, and my networks tend to be more diverse because those are the people that I've sort of connected with. And so those are the people that have been attracted to the roles, and obviously have wanted to kind of work in my school and join that mission. So I think I found it easy to do that, and it sort of happened, I think, without very much effort. I think that's hard to replicate. I think I've sort of been, not that it's a chance thing, but the circumstances have allowed that to happen relatively easily. And with that, I hope that that's going to attract more at kind of all levels in the school. But I do think we have to be deliberate about that. And I think it starts at the recruitment side, like where are we advertising these positions? How are we using our networks to recruit people into positions? And the reality is, you know, not many people apply for the jobs that I advertise. Like that's kind of the reality of where we are. We're kind of fringe London, but then also close enough to London that you could get paid more by just driving in 10 more minutes. So like there are challenges around recruitment, which means that I am reliant on networks and people bringing other people in that they know in order to staff the school. But yeah, I think it starts at the recruitment stage.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know. I mean, that sounds an incredible change in the senior leadership there. But would that have happened had you not been at the helm of that in your position? Because that's what worries me. If we don't create these leadership journeys for people, then that doesn't happen, does it? And you'll have been a fantastic architect of that through your leadership. Yeah. What do we do in areas where we haven't broken through and we're still a certain type of leadership model or look? What do we do?
I think my view is that it has to start at the top. And I think a lot of the work that's going on in multi-academy trusts and stuff around diversity, in my view, is focused in the wrong place, because you've got to shift the culture as well. And I think that when we focus, for example, at the kind of trainee route, I'm not saying that this isn't important, it is absolutely important work, but if we're placing them into schools where the culture is problematic, then they just leave. And so we're not really kind of solving the problem. So my view is very much that you have to sort it out the top. Like, we have to have more diverse people sat around boards of multi-academy trusts. We have to have more diverse people in those trust roles, in executive roles. We need more diverse people in headship positions. And I think if we can tackle that, then there will be a trickle-down effect in terms of culture that then means we can start to think about other layers in the school. But my view is that it very much, like, it has to start at the top, because I think you just create problems later down the line where the culture isn't right.
Okay. Bennie, do you want to contribute around
that? I was just going to say that the research backs up everything Aziza is talking about. And UCL research from a couple of years ago talked about how minoritized groups tend to seek jobs in schools where they can see visible examples of leadership that looks like them. They're more likely to apply for a job in senior leadership if, for example, there is somebody of a similar race or religion. So, it's not an accidental thing. It really is a kind of a way of feeling like you can break through in that space. And I do a lot of work in coastal and rural areas talking about inclusive leadership, inclusive recruitment. And the question comes up every time, well, how do we attract people who are diverse? And by that they often mean racially diverse. I have to remind them that they have diverse teams in lots of different ways, but yes, race is a rarer one. And then when I question about where they're putting their adverts or what networks they're tapping into, they're always very surprised that these networks exist. And so there's a lot of work to be done around publicizing the avenues through which you can recruit people. But Aziza's right, if the culture isn't there and a culture of inclusivity isn't there, then why would you stay? Because it's a dangerous space. For some people, it is literally dangerous. And the way that I often talk about it is, well, if you're going to have a leader in your system of whatever level, then you've got to make sure that there are checks and balances, there are safety nets around them so that they can thrive. I have done it over the years through coaching and mentoring, and that's been either formally or informally. I tend to coach, and I don't know if this is by design or by accident, I tend to coach South Asian women who are middle leaders trying to step up into a space. And the conversation is very similar. I feel out of place. I'm the only one. I'm the pioneer. And that can be really taxing. I often talk about the emotional tax of being the pioneer. It chips away at well-being eventually. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But those multi-academy trusts that are saying, look, we're so inclusive, I say, but where are your structures? What is the infrastructure around that? And there's got to be a commitment to that long term.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point. I'd be really interested to know, Bennie, going back to you, these people that you coach who want to step up to senior leadership, who are feeling that they're a trailblazer, or what are the burden? What is that emotional tax? Could you talk us through that? Because I'd be really interested to know, what are they vocalizing?
So, it's a combination of things. Sometimes they are hypervisible in that they are the only person of their identity group in a space, which often means that they get all the questions and the scrutiny. So I was one of the few gay senior leaders in Derby, in my school. And, all the gay problems came my way. So it was like, well, look, oh no, someone's coming out. Let's call Bennie. And I was one of the, I think I was the only Asian senior leader in Derby at that point. I don't know about now. And it does make you feel like you stand out, and that you are representing a whole group of people. That responsibility falls on you. And then simultaneously, there's that invisibility of those leaders when they realize that actually in lots of spaces, people like them haven't been there. And so the difficulty is often, well, how do I break into that space when the same people have been hired and they've been hired in someone's image? How do I become that person? And I definitely think there's a confidence gap. You know, when you are not used to having power, when you are not used to feeling that confidence, the coaching has been very much around, well, where do we find your worth? What is your value in this space? And really bringing that out of people.
Thank you for that. Gary, you were saying that you get that too in the chat. So do you want to just elaborate on that, please? Because I'd be really interested to hear.
Yeah, I think LGBT plus stuff is, people are scared of it. People don't understand it. And I get that, because a lot of people will have been educated during Section 28 when it was completely invisible. And, you know, a lot of what I've read around that talks about, you know, it was a really divisive piece of legislation, but and the silence that it's left is massive. But yeah, again, as a gay man in HE, when there's the, you know, when we're doing sessions looking at LGBT plus issues, it's always me who's drawn in, you know, to do this, and that can be quite a vulnerable thing, really, because you're sort of putting yourself out there, and you know, increasingly we're seeing resistance, we're seeing some really negative responses to some of that work as well. So it can be quite a threatening place. And whilst I don't mind doing it and I enjoy doing it, and it, you know, it's what I'm about, it can't just be me doing that, because if I left, who picks that up? Where does that work get done? And I think we need to get a lot better at being comfortable feeling uncomfortable. We don't have to have all of the answers. We don't have to understand. You know, people come to me and go, "Oh, you're gay, you'll know about this." I might not, you know, I might not have had that experience. So I think, you know, we need to, one thing I wrote down earlier on when Aziza was talking was about, you know, how we need to really sort of shatter these stereotypes that exist. And, you know, I'll often hear people saying, "Oh, I didn't know you were gay. You don't look it. You don't dress like you're gay. You don't." And it's like, oh, come on. Are we still in those? But we are, aren't we? You know, those stereotypes live on. So I think we just need to get better at feeling uncomfortable, and perhaps with our learning communities, showing that humility and showing that actually we're learning about this too, because these conversations, a bit like decolonising the curriculum. You know, when I hear schools say, "Oh, we've done loads of work this year, we've decolonised our curriculum," and I'm thinking, you've not, have you? Because it's an ongoing conversation. So, yeah, great. It's a great thing to be pioneer, you know, delivering, but it does get a bit tiring. And I do worry as well when people say, "Oh, well, if you can't make it, we'll probably have to not do it this year. We'll do it next year." And I think that's a real worry then, because you know, people need to know about these things, and they need to engage with them, whether they're comfortable with it or not.
Yeah, and I think you've made two really good points there. One, if you become the person who carries that work and you go, "Oh, well, he left, so we won't do it now," so it's not embedded in any way. But equally, what was if you don't want to do that work? What was if you've joined an organisation because you're like, "Right, I'm really good at, you know, safeguarding. I really want to, you know, do this, and this," and then all of a sudden you get this load, and then it kind of, when you talk about that confidence gap, it's like, why did they employ me? Why am I not doing what I said I did on interview day? Why am I doing this? And maybe that's another reason. So we've covered quite a few of the questions just in that one really long discussion there, which is brilliant. So let's just hit back again at, we've tried to create diversities, as Bennie said, within the team as leaders. What are the pitfalls and biases that we need to be aware of, we can advise people to look for in order for that systemic change to retain, not just recruit, but retain? So like you say, when culture falls down, what are the pitfalls?
I think it's a great question. I think the thing that comes to mind, and maybe it's probably a reflection that I'm having at the moment, is that there's probably a bias around when this stuff needs attention. So, like, for example, I'm in a position where I've got a really diverse senior team, and therefore job done, and there isn't job done. And I think it is easy to look at getting the people in the building as the end goal, and then therefore feel like the work is done. And there's a real pitfall there, I think, around, well, actually, we've got people here now, so like, there shouldn't be any issues around, inclusion or anything like that, because we've got these individuals around the table. Like, it's something that needs continuous work and input and deliberate effort. I think regardless of who you've got around the table, and we always need to be responding to a culture that we're seeing, things that are going on kind of outside the organisations that we work in. And so I think that's probably, well, certainly the risk that I'm thinking about at the moment is that, right, so once you achieve this kind of milestone, what happens next? Because sometimes it feels like that is the goal and it isn't.
Yeah, so putting you on the spot, Aziza, what? Because I love doing that. That's what I'm here for. What are you already identifying as a piece of work that you wish to pursue as you start your headship?
So I think it's hard because culturally, I'm sort of in a context where there's a lot of improvement that we need to do around the quality of education. Outcomes for children are just poor. And so actually, if I can do anything in the next 18 months, is make teaching better so that children get better outcomes. And that does need to be my focus, because it's been poor for too long, and it's just, we're doing a disservice to children and young people. And so that has to be where my energy is focused. Equally, I have to make sure that in doing that, I'm not creating a problematic culture that I then later on have to unpack around inclusion and belonging and all those things that are really incredibly important in schools. I think at the moment, my attention is very much in how do I make sure that children at my school get real experiences of the world beyond their bubble in Hertfordshire. Like, I spoke to a group of year 12s today about my story and my journey. And I was talking about the juxtaposition in London where rich and poor sort of live side by side. And that blew their mind. Like, even just that they literally have no idea. So I'm trying to make sure that those little things that I notice about the school and the culture, I am noting down, and I am taking time to think about them. And it might not be that this year is a year that I'm going to kind of tackle those things, but those are things that are important and things that I want to keep hold of and come back to at a certain point. I also want to be really deliberate around pieces of work that we do. So I started doing some random pupil panels with all of my vice principals, where we just meet a random set of students and talk to them about their experience. Started getting tighter on like monitoring trends around behaviour and safeguarding, looking at trends in discriminatory language and things like that, and how we can kind of respond proactively to those sorts of things. And then equally is just starting to think carefully about kind of staff experience. But in all honesty, it is hard, because I know that my energy has got to be around improving teaching in this school. And all that other stuff is incredibly important, but I've got to think about how I kind of balance my time. I don't know if I answered the question. I've gone on a bit.
Yeah, you have, because we were talking about what the potential pitfalls are. Yeah. And the pitfalls is you are an incredibly busy person who will be under a lot of pressure. And morally, it's the right thing to do as well. It's not just because you're being told to do it, to steer that ship around and get those outcomes for those young people. So it's how you manage that and still do all of that work. That is the pitfall, isn't it? Bennie, do you want to sort of contribute there around what do you think, especially with your coaching role, what biases should we be aware of, what pitfalls, where do you see it going wrong when people have good intentions?
People do have good intentions. I genuinely do believe that. And I have definitely seen well-intentioned efforts that end up being in the pit, if you like, have fallen in the pit. And that's often to do with a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge about people's experience, people's needs, people's way of communicating culturally or otherwise, and that whole piece around cultural intelligence, or CQ. I find that at the recruitment stage, the issue is that it's very hard to recruit diverse people, a diverse range of people, when nobody on the panel or the selection team or anyone like that has any understanding of kind of the social barriers, the work barriers, the professional barriers that certain people face. So it becomes we've put out an advert, but no one replied, so therefore what can we do? Shrug shoulders. Oh, we've got a person who's applied, but they look like they might rock the boat. They're not really like us. I often talk about a time when I applied for a headship, a very leafy school in South Oxfordshire, having worked in London for many years. And I was woefully underqualified, I might add. I was an outsider in so many ways. And the first question that was asked of me in the interview was, why does somebody like you want to work in a school like this? And it was a bit like, is this code? Yes, I've worked with inner city children. These aren't inner city children. Yes, I'm brown. These children or your staff aren't brown. And so immediately it's the, that recognition of my difference, and it potentially being a barrier for me to get a job, to step into that role. On paper, there's no reason for me not to have that job. It certainly shouldn't be because of my diversities. And so, selection, recruitment, induction, all of those are spaces where pitfalls do occur around not just getting people through the door, but hiring them and looking after them. And I do wish that people would just do a bit more listening, right? Talk to people, hear their stories, understand what they need. People are willing to talk. I'm just not sure they're being heard.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well put. Gary, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with absolutely everything that's been said. And I think that thing around priorities in education, there's Ofsted, there's data, there's so many different competing things, and then new policy coming in, all of those different things. So it is about how do you meet those things that you need to do, but also keep everything else on the boil. And I think that can be really difficult. I think, a key pitfall for me is that sort of tick box or tokenism, where people think, oh, well, we've done that now. We've done the LGBT session this year. That's it, tick. But how is that embedded? It's a bit like, history months and theme days, all of those things. Great. But how are they then being used as a springboard for future work, and how does that become embedded and part of the sort of the natural dialogue? I think other pitfalls are that, there is a silencing and there's invisibility because we don't necessarily understand other people's experiences. And it goes back to your point, Bennie, about, people not always talking, not always listening, and not taking the time to find things out. And I think, I'm thinking about somebody I used to line manage, and we had some great conversations that hadn't really got an agenda. We just had some really good, and I always left feeling a lot richer for those conversations. Sometimes they'd made me feel really uncomfortable because it made me think, oh, have I done that in the past? It makes you reflect on your privilege. And I think we need to do that because, our privileges do affect how we see other people and how we work with them. And I think there's very often a thing around seeing people as homogenous groups with the same characteristics. And, I'll never, ever forget the day I went to, I won't name them, but it was a famous wardrobe company. And I went in, and filling out the details, and the lady said to me, she goes, right, so it's Mr. and Mrs. I said, oh, actually it's Mr. and Mr. And she said, oh, right, okay, no problem. My daughter's a lesbian. Do you know her? And I was a bit like, really? And, but that thing around everybody being the same and everybody knowing each other, it's a complete nonsense. And I don't know whether some of it's ignorance, whether it's nervousness, I don't know what it is, but we do need to take the time to talk, to find things out. And I think to overcome those biases, putting ourselves into situations where we probably don't feel very comfortable, where we don't have the answers, where we might have to sort of do quite a bit of introspection and think, yeah, I've said that or thought that or seen that happen. It needs to be part of the ethos, doesn't it? And that doesn't happen overnight. But I think, in meeting some of those priorities around Ofsted and those sorts of things, the other stuff will follow. But it takes time, and you've got to be. I mean, it's great work to be part of, but it's absolutely exhausting. So we need to have that solidarity together, I think, and just make sure that we're not marginalising people. We're keeping everybody visible, and we're having those conversations, and we're open to be pulled up if we don't do that.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So to summarise, because believe it or not, we are coming to the end now, which is crazy. It's gone very, very fast. I think we're all sort of agreeing that the best way to do this is through how do we get recruitment adverts out? What does that process then look like? That hiring, that selection, the interview process, and then how do you look after those people in that space that you have employed them in? It reminds me of, I did some work with a company, and again, it's that lens. Once it gets switched on, whatever protected characteristic applies to you. It's not that you have to do the work, but you've just got that lens, haven't you? So I remember, there was a little bit of, we can't diversify our workforce. So I said, well, have you seen your website? And they were like, it's brilliant. And I said, it's lovely. And you've got profiles of everyone. How many of them refer to, it was always like, I got a dog and I love this. And it was lovely. But every single one, I think probably out of the 12 profiles, all of them mentioned alcohol. Nothing wrong with that at all. But as someone who's got a Muslim family, how are you going to feel that that's your space? And they would immediately went, oh my goodness, you're right. And everyone had just done their profiles. They'd gone on the website, but no thought had gone behind that. And then what was the culture they were projecting, which isn't the culture. It's not some big, heavy socializing company at all, but they just hadn't seen that particular image they were putting out there. And you need to have diversity on your leadership team before people go, wait a minute, what? And then, are you allowed to speak up and say that, or will you be quieted as a troublemaker, like you said? So we talked there in quite a what needs to happen. So to just flip it, what excellent practice, let's invigorate everybody who's listening. What excellent practice have you seen that you've gone, absolutely brilliant, everyone needs to do this? Oh, I hope you can answer.
I've seen a lot. I think for me, it's just that thing where people stand up for other people. That I was in a session the other day with a professor, and she was talking about how she's often seen as a killjoy, because she makes people question these things and, brings people back down. And I think that's really important, because ultimately we've got to be the advocates for children, young people, for the people that we're working. We've got to advocate for each other. And, the best things that I've seen are where people do speak out against those injustices that not everybody might see, and puts them out there. I think that's the key thing for me, just being an advocate and standing up for what's right.
Yeah, I started to read, and Benny's just given us a very good recommendation in the chat, which I've written down. I've written two things from you, Benny, like a I wrote another one down that you reckon. Was it Oh no, someone mentioned Rebel Ideas. Who was that who mentioned that? That's a read for me. Was that you, Aziza? Yeah, and then Feminist Killjoy as well. Apparently, that's the book to read, everyone. So you've got a little bit of summer reading recommended, courtesy of this chat. I'm reading one about how to raise an anti-racist at the moment, and one of the opening lines is, "You're either racist or you're anti-racist." Because by saying I'm not racist, you're not actually doing anything about things that you come across. So again, it lines up with that advocacy, allyship, speaking up, and speaking out. So absolutely. So any other areas of excellent practice from Bennie or Aziza? What have you seen working?
Yeah, I've worked with lots of multi-academy trusts now, and there are some brilliant examples out there of trusts who, and this is very much driven by trust leadership, where the idea of inclusion, belonging, and equity is absolutely central to everything that happens in the trust. So they don't just have the one-off training; they have the commitment. So I go back over and over again. I genuinely feel like they are passionate about it, and that kind of diffuses down into their staff. And in areas where actually it might be quite difficult to do some of this work. So there's a trust in Birmingham with a very large religious population, and yet you have pride flags outside the building, LGBT societies, and it's like, well, these things don't have to exist separately. We've got a trust that's really worked hard on building that culture. And that to me, I think, is just incredible, incredibly hard, but incredible.
Absolutely. Ziza?
I would say, so a few things. I've seen coaching circles work really well, where there's a group of individuals from diverse backgrounds. I think it works well with someone who is like quite senior, but from potentially a protected characteristic. I did one when I was a trustee of Teach First for kind of employees within Teach First, and I think the power behind that was that I was sat at board level talking about big decisions about the organisation, and then meeting with all sorts of people in the organisation, and having that connection with them, I think was important. And I could draw my personal experiences, but also there was that kind of link to the broader organisation. I have also seen reverse mentoring work really well, snap. I've seen reverse mentoring work really well, and I think that if you set it up right and you get the contracting right around that, I think it's incredibly powerful for both sides. I think there's benefits on both sides, both the mentor and the mentee. So I'd say that those are two kind of practical things that I've seen kind of work well. The other thing, which I think is interesting, is more kind of deliberate around recruitment processes, is that a lot of what we do around recruitment in schools is very much about putting people on the spot. You might get a bit of an outline for the day, but you're going to get thrown into an in-tray activity that you've got 15 minutes to do, or some data that you've got to process really quickly. And there is, I definitely read this in a book somewhere, talking about how that level of pressure and stress negatively affects some individuals more than others, and typically those from diverse backgrounds who come with all sorts of baggage and anxieties around their experiences of going through interview processes. So I think on a practical level, just thinking about how we interview, because ultimately what you're looking for is someone who's competent in the role and is aligned to your vision and values. We don't have to put people on the spot in order to establish that. And I think that we've just got into habits around how we recruit people that is kind of unnecessary. Like one thing I did for some of my senior leader applications is I get people to respond to do their presentation in advance. So here's a presentation that I want you to deliver, you've basically got a week in advance or whatever, however many days to sort of prepare that in advance before the presentation. Or I've given them a list of priorities for the year, and I've said, talk about these priorities in the interview, or write an essay, write 500 words in response to this statement, to get a sense of alignment. I just don't think that we have to stick to the traditional methods of recruitment.
Amazing. Right, we've got a lot of positive things there and tips. I think that's a really nice point to end on. Can I say thank you very, very much for letting me host you guys, because you've been absolutely fascinating. I've written loads of notes that I'm going to magpie from you guys, so I've had a great evening. But I'll hand it back over to Elaine now, but thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry, I've realised that Adam put me back on camera right as I was typing up notes, just kind of different points. I think it's been really, really interesting discussion. I want to say thank you again to Louise, Aziza, Bennie, and Gary. It's been brilliant, and thank you for being here. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you at another event in the next academic year. So, looking at tonight, we do want to hear from you. Anybody who's viewed tonight, even if you're viewing this on our YouTube channel later on and not viewing it live. So please share your key takeaways from tonight's chat. Really, really empowering. I think, where there's a will, there's a way. I think it's having, seeing those barriers. How can we get around them, get over them, get through them, and making sure that, that diversity, as Bennie said, isn't just about color or race. It's about, there's many elements to that. So please share your thoughts using the hashtag. What's next? So follow our Eventbrite page, where you would have gotten the link for tonight. So if you click follow on Eventbrite, it means that anytime that we put our events live, you will get an email straight away so that you don't miss out. We're always looking for people to write blogs for us. They're published on our website, I think, every 2 weeks. So anybody who'd like to, please have a look at our website, and that has all the details about our blog. Checking out our website, the directory of coaching, and our library. So on YouTube, which this webinar will be put on, there's loads of material on there. We've also, I think Anna's been really busy in the background cutting down a number of the clips so that they're nice short 10, 12-minute clips on different topics. Amplify and share on X and Twitter and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss out on any of the events. You also get copies of the blogs, things like that. And join us at another event next year. I know this academic year is rapidly coming to a close, which for me as a senior leader, it's slightly scary because you're thinking of September and all that planning and getting everything ready. So please keep an eye out for all of our future events. They're going to be loaded onto Eventbrite pretty soon. So thank you so much. Make sure that you connect with us in some way through Twitter, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, our email address, our website, our blogs. So I really look forward. I want to say thank you again to our guests. It's been a really, really good discussion. I think it's some nice reading material that has been suggested as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, Adam, in the background, who has been the technical maestro for tonight. Have a fabulous evening and have a fabulous summer holidays. This is our last event of this academic year. So I want to wish all of the people who've engaged with us throughout the year, whether it was in person, online, in our webinars, reading our blogs, contributing to the blogs. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next academic year. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.